couple of really fun modules for you. The home stretch here is we're going to talk about map of the world, which I've already referenced a little bit. And I'm going to show you how to start identifying other people's maps of the world in more detail so that you can develop this superpower where, as I like to call it, where you're communicating using their map of the world, not yours, right? And that is so incredibly powerful. Remember the piece I did? We talked about, like one distinction about, being outcome-oriented and everything, and it can rock your world when you're using their map. It's so astonishing. So I love teaching this because I was clueless about this when I came to all of this, and I thought, wow, and it's just been so amazing to learn. And you can be so much of a better resource to others when you speak their language and you know their map. So in many ways, if this was like a language course, I'd be teaching you the verbs, the French verbs, so you can speak better French, and then you can have better. It's going to be better all around. But in this case, it's anybody you communicate with, your kids, your spouse, your friends, and every colleague, every professional interaction on the phone, in your emails. This works in every context, any place you communicate with people. You have any of those instances in your day? I have a few. Okay. So a few opening frames, and then I'm going to ask for a volunteer to come up and talk about any goal that's important to them. And then I'm going to observe their map, and I'm going to show you how to elicit their map. So you have to be willing to have us know you a little bit about your map of the world, like maybe some things that are important to you and chunk size and things. I'm going to show you how to listen to them and then communicate using their map. So I'm going to ask for a volunteer. I will not embarrass you. But you do need to be somebody you're willing to let everybody else know, well, here's a little bit about my map of the world, which is a good thing. Okay. So a few first things I've already mentioned, but I want to replay for you. We know that we have a tendency to use our own map of the world, right? And it says this in your handouts, but I'm trying to make it so you don't have to, there's more in your handouts than I'll cover, but so you don't have to just stare at the handouts. I mentioned the example earlier. Most of the time, like if you want to motivate me, you're probably going to have a tendency to use the way you are motivated to motivate me, right? Do you realize that if that's how you're trying to motivate, how many of you have kids? Can I see, Sean? If that's how you're trying to motivate your kids, that's why you're having problems motivating them to clean their bedroom or brush their teeth or whatever, right? Because you're motivating them the way you are motivated, not the way you're not using their map of the world. That's just the lingo we use, okay? But again, this is more than communication. This could almost be called an influence training at this point. This gives you influence. Now, if you can get your kids to clean their room before dinner, you've got some serious influence. That's what my friends with kids say, right? Stuff like that. So, or if you can get someone, as we mentioned earlier, from the problem frame, they're stuck, they're whining, over to the outcome frame, they're telling you what they need to be satisfied. That's sometimes almost a miracle, assuming that they will shift. That's a big deal, right? That's a good example as we went through. So the first premise is we have a tendency to use our map. That's just normal. That's okay. However, that is the cause of a lot of our communication problems. We're speaking English and they're speaking Dutch and they don't understand a word we're saying. We're not using their map in our lingo. The other one is, this is really easier than you could imagine. This is really simple. I'm going to show you, just learn to listen for their map of the world, other people's. And the fun part is you can practice this on your kid, your children, like I said, your spouse, your friends. Don't tell them what you're doing. I recommend just do it until they go, what are you doing? And they will. They'll go like, whoa, this is really cool. I have students who would tell me this. When I teach them, every Thursday over time, they go, my friend turned to me and said, what are you doing? Now, and they have more influence in the relationship and more quality in the relationship. So listen for their map and then speak to them, which means communicate, using their map, not yours. And I want to start with values, which is a simple one. So who would like to come up and feels it's okay for us to know a little bit about your values? It's all right. Anybody who wants to come up, maybe for like 5 minutes? We have any volunteer?
Come on, Sid.
Sid, give him a huge round of applause. Thank you, Sid. Please be at ease.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Let's pretend like I got an attitude.
The problem with it, Sid, is he's so yeah, he was.
So shy.
Yeah, he's so shy, you're like, oh, a sales guy. All right. So, Sid, thank you very much. So, here's all we're going to do. Sid, would you please just talk about a goal that you feel comfortable sharing with us, something that's important to you. Forget that we're here, like just tell me about it, and just tell me about it, if you would, please. Like, what's something that is a goal, something you're going for?
Well, like
Any goal, like something that's important to you, or something a goal.
Could a goal be trying to get more potential clients to call me back?
Yeah,
That'd be a goal.
yeah. I would say that's an awesome goal. Yeah. Except that, if I may, I'm programmed to do this, is try is another word for fail. So remember, I'm a linguist for 2.5 decades, so I hear every word. In fact, Bandler, when I trained with him, taught me every word counts. It took me about a decade to really implement that. It's like I hear every word. So can you restate that outcome without the word try in there?
Yeah, make.
Please. Because I love the outcome.
I want more of my clients to call me back. I want more of my potential clients to call me back.
Awesome. Wow, that sounded different, didn't it? Yeah. I was going to impersonate Yoda by, try, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, very good. So I want more of my clients, prospective clients or clients? Prospective clients to call me back.
Call me back.
Awesome goal. So would you just share a little bit about that?
Well, we have services that people could really use, and the people don't know how much they could use them.
Okay, I'm just going to grab a pen.
Oh, okay. And the people don't know how much they could use them.
Awesome.
And initially they might have some interest, but as I follow up with calls and talk to them more about it, they're not responding or they're not calling me back.
Okay. What's important to you in that situation?
That they call me back.
That they call you back. That's the most important thing?
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you get out of when they call you back? What do you get out of that?
I get an opportunity to talk to them, and I'm getting an opportunity to get an outcome that I want and an outcome that they want.
Outstanding. Does that sound good? Yeah. Let me ask you something. Now, you've been listening, paying attention. I mean, this is pretty obvious. He's got a nice goal. He's well-spoken and articulate about it. Let me ask you. So you're listening for his map of the world. What are his values in like a word? And go ahead and take some guesses if you're not sure. What would you say is important to him? Succeeding. What else?
Helping his client.
Helping his client. Okay, yeah. Did you hear opportunity?
Yeah.
I wanted opportunity. I asked the question, what do you get out of that? What's important to you about that? Which is to elicit the value, right? And he said, right, it was about opportunity. It creates an opportunity for him. Okay?
And an opportunity for them, so it's a mutual.
And for them, so a win-win. So right, so it's like but it's opportunity, win-win, and create value for them. Okay? You got it? So it's pretty easy to hear the values. Let's go more in the value. So let me ask you, if I may, what else do you get? What else do you get when your prospective customer is calling you back? That's important to you.
Yeah. Well, the end goal is I get paid, I get more money.
So you make more money. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So you create opportunities for them, and then you make more money.
Right.
Okay. Is there anything else that's really important to you about this whole process?
the fact that I help somebody, the fact that other people know that I help somebody, and then that helps lead to the more money.
More money.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
cause effect.
Right, that's a
Right.
cause effect.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you get his nonverbals, or are you watching me? You hear my tag questions and watching his response? Watch, I'm going to demonstrate. I'm demonstrating the half-second response. I'm doing it all the time. I don't communicate without how somebody responding to my communication now. I don't want to wait, and I don't want to guess. Okay? Watch his response to me, please. What are his values now? What are his values? I just asked another question. What else does that do for you?
Future business.
Future business. What else? Make more money. Make money. Right? It's pretty easy. He has clear values, right? Right. So I just what?
I heard satisfaction. You get satisfaction out of it.
Yeah, very good. Right? Yeah, that's part of it. Does that feel right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Now we're just kind of making it conscious, but it's not. If I weren't making the comment here, meta commenting, what are his values? Like, it's pretty easy to hear his values, right? So that's one level. So now I want to challenge you, right? I mean, you guys look way too comfortable after all that bow and arrow stuff. Okay? Gonna get you going here. So now I'd like you to communicate to Sid using his values. Please, if you feel comfortable, jotting down a couple. I do this all the time with clients. I don't want to trust my memory. I'll write them down. I noticed opportunity, win-win, which you language very nicely, is kind of a, right? And then it's like make money. It creates opportunity to make money. Is that
Right.
are those? Yeah. Of those, which would you say is the most important? Like, what's the most important thing to you? And forget all these other
the
ghosts and
jack-off.
forget these people. That's an echo from the golf
No,
course.
I would say the reputation of creating opportunity.
Reputation of creating opportunity.
Right.
I love it. Did you see how I mirrored him? I did it. I didn't do it exactly the same time. I waited and then I did his hand gesture.
Yeah.
Did you see that? You're watching?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a position. I don't usually sit on an angle, but he's a lot taller than I am. So like when I have to, and by the way, I didn't mention there's a few little things on rapport. Let me clear up some, you see, if John doesn't close my loops, I have to do it myself. So I always watch, which is great, which is, if I'm mirroring a woman, it can feel a little uncomfortable. I don't always sit the way a woman, they're sometimes smaller body, sometimes not. I'm only comfortable going so far modeling a woman. I don't want to take on female characteristics. And so I go to my comfort zone. Respect your comfort zone like that, right? You women, you may not want to sit like a man, or maybe you do. Be comfortable and do what's appropriate for you, okay? You can still mirror someone and still feel good and not feel uncomfortable, okay? The other one is, when should you rapport can create such a deep rhythm that you start feeling the other person's feelings. Do you guys get that? Yeah, it's true. And you can even start getting their thoughts and know what they're thinking. So when should you never create rapport? Don't create rapport or lasting rapport. It's dangerous.
Negative situation.
When someone is depressed, I wouldn't create deep rapport. Or if they're really sick. Like if I coach nurses and stuff, I teach them how they'll stay in a different state than the person. Don't get in deep rapport with the sick person. You can pick up, right? Because we pick up the rhythm. So I wanted to make sure I close this loop. There are only a couple times when you don't want to create this deep rapport. This creates deep rapport. When someone's really sick or depressed, really negative, you can do a quick second. You can go in for a second and then come right back to your resourceful state. No problem. If they're really in a down state. So I wanted to clean that up. Now you can do this safely, okay? Those are the only times really it's not, you have to watch creating deep rapport. Be careful breathing. We do really advanced rapport, and we do advanced sensory acuity. I'm tracking the color of your skin, the eye gloss, your blink rate. Yeah, and your breathing. I watch the shoulders, and I'm pacing. I'll pace my language sometimes too. Okay. Now that's more advanced stuff. But if you, like people who sing together are breathing together, you got to be really careful with that. If you breathe, you can pick up the same feelings. Okay? So I'm not saying you can't join a choir. It's just safety is important. It's a criteria of mine. I would never teach you anything that wouldn't keep you safe and well, protect your self-esteem. So I wanted to clean that up. I didn't include that, okay? Thank you for your patience. So now what I'd like you to do is, would you communicate to Sid, ask him a question, or just speak to him using one of those values? It's really simple, right? Go ahead. You have a list of a few values, right?
Yeah. So Sid.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
Sid. What kind of tools you think you might use to stay focused on your outcome?
Okay, let me pause you. So, very good question. What kind of tools do you think you may use to stay focused on your outcome?
Was it really, though? That was a good question?
Well, hold on. Hold on. I think I have a higher opinion of it than Sid. I wanted to remind you something I left out. This was my mistake. I want you to practice one other thing. We're getting this the second half of the day, so I'm going to challenge you guys a little bit. And that was a good question. To me, it didn't match one of his criteria, like the opportunity or win-win or the other, but we can get Sid's input on this. But it's still a good question. But what I want to encourage you to do when you ask the question, please use one of those value words. So I forgot to mention that.
Focus is not a value word on his outcome?
Was focus one of your top values? I didn't get focus.
Yeah.
Because he didn't use that word, by the way. Notice I'm tracking the words, they reveal the value.
Yeah, so
Is that right?
I didn't use focus. I don't know if focus could be a remedy or maybe.
So that's the answer is no, and he's just being really elegant. He said, I don't know. Like he said, he was very definite. Let me tell you this, people cannot not communicate. They're telling you their values. You just, up until now, in the past, you just haven't been noticing it and listening for them. And then I'm going to add 4 other components. When you start hearing these things, you will know so much about people's maps of the world, be able to use it and communicate. It's incredible. So the answer would be no. So it's a good question, but my instructions were the fault here. So it wasn't you. So I would like you to ask a question like this. So said, so how would you know when someone calls you back and it's a really good opportunity? Now, you don't have to answer because what I did is I used his word, the opportunity, right? Then I want you to do one other thing. So now this is the advanced part, right? When you finish your question, where should you be looking?
At his face.
At his face. Yeah. Notice his nonverbal response. Now, it's not to make you feel uncomfortable, because we've been tracking this all the time, and I'm pointing out you guys to bring your attention to it, make aware of it, and it's fun. But remember, when you walk out there, no one else is paying attention to this. When you align with them and you sit like, they don't care. They're not even tracking it. People walk around in trance, as one of my teachers told me. They do. They walk around in trance, right? One of my best friends used to sell, well, he was a best friend. We've drifted apart, but one of my NLP trainers sold heroin on the streets of Berkeley for years, sold heroin. And then I met him in an NLP training. He had gone to Milton Erickson's daughter, he's the most famous hypnotist of modern hypnotism. And he said, you got to whack me into trance, get me off of heroin. And she said, we don't have to hypnotize you. She said, we have to wake you up. That's what she said. And she got him off of heroin. He's a marriage and family counselor. He gets people off of heroin and other drugs at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland.
Awesome.
Beyond awesome, right? And he uses hypnotic trend, all these things that she taught, all this cool stuff. But my point is, right? You get the point there. So, half-second response, and he does it with this kind of stuff. So, okay, you got my example? So please ask a question using the words, and I singled out, but, win-win, although those weren't the words you used, I don't think, but you used opportunity.
Yeah, opportunity.
Reputation, right? Some of these, okay? So now he's making it obvious for us, but the idea is from a conversation you could just get these, right? If you're listening for someone's values. Okay, somebody go ahead, toss out a question and then notice his response.
What are some of the skills that you try to elicit to generate additional opportunity?
Okay. Skills meaning that when I first talk to someone or make contact with them. So, I try to build rapport. I try to empathize or relate to whatever issue that they might have.
Outstanding. I'm going to pause you there because I know there's more, and those are excellent skills. So, great questions. You notice his nonverbal. Okay, so that's our drill. So he definitely knows the answer to that. How about one more, and then I want to move on to another piece of people's maps of the world.
How do you define a win-win?
Did you notice his response? His nonverbal response?
So, can I go?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to have, the reason is I couldn't quite see you, and I'm sorry I didn't mean to. But remember, we call it the half-second response because as soon as you finish your question, do you know the subconscious mind? I learned this in training. It's working really fast. It's fast. In fact, in training, if I describe a process, the person will be doing it before I tell them to begin, because the subconscious mind, the brain works quickly. It's operating faster than you realize. So when you ask a question, they're going to respond to their automatic response is within a half a second. That's that long. It's like one. It's half of that long. So like 1001, that long. So when you finish the question, pause and stay on their face, okay? And just capture it, and then you've done the half-second response, okay? I don't know if you missed or not, but it just gives me a chance to say again. Yeah. It was actually a great question.
Yeah, so the question was, how do I define a win-win?
Right.
So I defined a win-win when, could you silence that, please?
Yeah.
I defined a win-win when the client gets the outcome that she wants, and then I get the outcome that I want.
Awesome. How about a big, huge hand for Sid? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for coming up and sharing part of that.
Okay.
You guys remind me at the end, I want to do something special for you, sales guy. You guys are awesome. And that's two people who have said you want to be able to get prospective people to call you back. I can slam dunk that for you. Okay, I promise you. Okay, so remind me and I'll do it. Okay. Was that informational? Yeah? You got that? Okay, now I'm kind of making it easier for you. So now I'm just going to name that thing, and would someone else come up, and we're going to do a different, just like we did with Sid, a different map of the world, and we're going to know what that is. I'm going to have people ask you questions, using your map of the world. Okay, who would like to come up? I need some volunteers. Kind of easy. That was easy and excellent. Anybody? Or if you want, I'll do it. Okay, you can do it for me. Okay, I'll be the volunteer. So don't put anybody on the spot. So, well, I don't want anybody to be volunteered. Okay, so I want to use another part of the map of the world, and I'm going to use. Are you going to volunteer? Okay. Yeah. Big hand for Matt. Thank you, Matt. Matt's always a go-getter. He's a go-getter. You are in sales, aren't you, Matt?
Sort of.
Sort of. Okay. Thank you for coming up. So this is one you've heard me mention, but I want to help you get to the next level with it, which is this is so easy to do once you just have these as criteria. You use criteria all the time, So I'm just helping you learn some different ones you probably haven't really thought about. And this one is we've done values. So and you might want to jot down some of my elicitation questions. So what's important to you about X? Okay, that will elicit a person's values. And what do you get from that? What's most important to you about that? And that'll get more values, okay? This one is chunk size. Remember I mentioned if a person is detail oriented, which means they're attending to a tiny chunk, or if they're like big vision oriented and they're thinking in big pictures. If a person is small chunk and they're thinking in details, and you talk about big pictures in the vision, you can go like this. It breaks rapport. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Matt to talk. Now I gave you the thing, so Matt, I'm going to ask you to like forget all about chunk size and just talk to me, and and pretend they're not there, and like don't even think about it at all. But you guys pay attention to his chunk size. Okay. Okay. So I know you. You find, the way I think of you from our time in Vegas is you are masterful at, you find exquisite real estate deals, right? You know how to tap in, is that right?
Yeah, we look for opportunities in distressed properties.
In distressed properties.
Loans.
And that's your specialty?
Yes.
That is awesome. So can I clone you? So there's so many people in real estate. That is a super talent. I'm just kind of curious, where did you learn to do that?
So I was a real estate appraiser in New York. I actually went to school for architecture, started with a real estate appraiser, stayed with that. And there was an individual who worked at a bank that was buying non-performing loans. He needed help with valuations for properties on Long Island in New York City.
Right.
And somehow he got my name. We went out together. We were looking at the properties. We probably spent like 14 hours a day in the car looking at properties. And I said, this is a great business. I said, I really like this.
Very
so
cool.
He liked me, I liked him.
Yeah.
I thought it was an interesting business. A year later, he hired me, and here I am today.
Awesome. All right. Awesome. Big hand for Matt. Now, most people may know this about you, but I love to hear that. That is
Most people haven't heard this.
They haven't heard this. Okay. So that's pretty cool, right? You got to even learn more about each other, which is very cool. I love doing that. And I also I have one of my coaching clients is a pay-for-performance real estate guy. I may have mentioned him. I've coached him for a dozen years, and he does that, plus structures all the deals. Now he's a millionaire. And I marvel at what he does. I get to coach him, but I don't know much about commercial real estate. You guys are excellent at that. But I marvel at what you guys do. So I already know his chunk size. Definitely. Do you?
Yeah.
What is his chunk size?
Large.
Okay.
Large.
Is that large? Medium? You guys aren't sure? Who wants to guess? So he talked about a specific guy, a specific thing where he learned it. It's pretty detailed, isn't it? He didn't say, I went to this school and they taught me this theory. He said, I went to this guy. He told a story with details about the story. If you're going to communicate to him, do you talk in the big vision, or would you match his world by like a story or something with specific parts of it?
Yes.
Yeah. Who wants to give it a swing and notice his response after you do it? Like just for fun. Because you have nothing better to do right now. Okay, just take a shot at it. Like, he told a story with some pretty specific details. He did this, I learned that, we liked each other, right? Now, it wasn't micro chunk, but like maybe in the middle, maybe some big guys, but it definitely wasn't big vision.
Are we asking him a question or something?
Any communication you want, Shafiq? Yeah. But guys, please make it genuine and really communicate to Matt using his. Now, you probably haven't done this before. Communicate to Matt. This is an opportunity using his chunk size.
So Matt, is that guy that you started business with, is he still doing the business?
Not really. He's been probably retired for about 10 years.
Is that a specific thing or a big vision? That's specific, isn't it? It's one guy. It's not the team, the nation. The guy. Politics sucks in America. That's a big vision. I think it's true. But anyway, right? That's big. See what's big? And then chunks like talking about a specific guy. Micro chunk is, I'm kind of micro chunking, these detailed parts of a person's map of the world, pretty precise, right? So we're kind of drilling down. Okay? So just so you know, that chunk size takes a little getting used to. Good question. Yeah. Just a question. Who else wants to throw one out? Did you notice Matt's response?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just checking. Yeah. One more?
We need to make it a little colder in here. I think the people are like losing some energy.
You guys, have I stumped you, or you just don't know what's there? Or you just, this is a little stretch, isn't it? You're not used to doing this. You want to ask about like a person, a little bit of detail, but not maybe too much detail. So you got to practice doing this, right? What if someone's kind of at this chunk size? You don't want to be micro chunked, and you don't want to be too big chunk.
I'll try. So Matt, how did you transition from where you were at the beginning of your career, where you got started after you met this guy, to where you are today? Did you meet Mr. Freeman in particular, or how did you get to where you are now?
So when the Great Recession hit in like 2006, 2007, the individual I was working for was pretty well off. He was older. He was in his early 70s. And he came to me one day, and I was, we had multiple conversations about it. And he just kind of came to me one day and said, I think you're right. I'm going to be nervous about buying loans going forward. And, basically he was just going to hang it up and collect on his interest and run off his portfolio. So it's good. It wasn't like I didn't have a job, but, as obviously somebody who gets compensated on volume and, buys and sells, it was like, okay, where does that really leave me? So struck out on my own, brokered deals, and through brokering deals, I met an individual, John Freeman, who we kind of hit it off.
Awesome. So very good question, right? Did you notice his response? Got a really good response. Awesome, you guys. Go ahead and you want to do one?
I was going to say, where did you meet John? Was it a conference or?
Okay, I'm going to pause you there. Awesome. I'm sorry, I didn't give you a beat to notice his response. That's exactly right. What's he sort for? Or his map.
Okay.
Notice he sorts for people.
Okay.
He's sorting for people. What if he was sorting for processes? He went like this. So how did I get so good, Alexander goes, how did I get good in loans, or identifying great deals? Well, I kind of learned this process. First you do this, second you do this, and third you do, and he goes through a set of steps. Now he's process oriented. He wouldn't have mentioned a person. His criteria is people, and it's a fairly medium chunk, but it's pretty precise on people.
Yeah.
Right? And so I pause you because your question was exactly right. Very good.
I'll give you that answer later.
Yeah. So, but it's not that his answers aren't important, but it's just the important thing I'm emphasizing is you guys and asking. So Matt's working with me here. Can we do one more with you? Because you're being so good. One more thing? Guys, got it? Very, very good. You're using someone else's map. You're in a whole other position, okay? Most people do not do this. So I want to see if we can get in one more here. And that is, I want to have you do...
Alexander,
Yes.
so you say most people don't do this, so most people really aren't listening to Matt
Right.
and then relating back to an aspect. They may just start talking about something else.
Right. And by the way, what determines if you're listening is your sun sign. No, I'm just kidding. Are you a Pisces? Do we listen to everything? Your state. Yeah. John is an exceptional listener. I know this. He hears more stuff. If I miss something, he goes, so back to Erica's point. If I didn't quite, it's like he's listening. Why? Because his state, he just, from being a leader, I don't have 50 employees, and he's had a lot of practice. You've had a lot of practice, and you're really good at that. I like to point out people's strengths. And so, and also it's a value. So he's absolutely. So we have to want to hear what they're saying and know it's really important. Quick secrets to listening. My greatest one is, well, first, trust that you'll remember what you're going to say, and so let it go and make it okay even if you forget it. Make it okay. We're worrying about what we're going to say, and even if you have to, write it down. The other one is this. This is how I got better. Make what they're saying more important than what you're thinking. Make what they're saying more important than what you're thinking. And trust your mind to remember something important you wanted to say. And if it's that important, you will remember. By the way, this builds integrity with your subconscious mind. It'll remind you if it's that important. If it's not, let it go or write it down so you can forget it. Remember it later. So these are two big ways I got better. So make what they're saying more important than what you're thinking for a little bit of time. Not forever, right? And then, right, it's like, okay, does that help? That's really a couple tips on really being a great listener is so important. And we're not all, some people are really good at it, and it takes practice. And it's your state that drives it. So thanks for bringing that up. So one more. So I want to do, we notice he sorts for people. And you asked a great question about a person. Man, will that create rapport? okay, and chunk size. How about modality? Is he in pictures, sounds, or feelings? Feeling. Now, by the way, I want to make a point here. It's not always they're in one or the other. Sometimes people are a balance, especially people like me who've trained for many years. In neurolinguistics, we train ourselves to be more flexible. So if we were more visual in the beginning, now we bring out the other modalities so that we have a natural balance. But most people don't do that. So not everybody will be, you know, big chunk size. Sometimes they can do both, and it's context driven. So this is not like, well, she's a visual and he's a big chunk size. It's in a certain context when you're getting feedback, they happen to be in this modality or this chunk size. So please don't use this to label people, because unlike the Enneagram and some of these other models, we don't do that in this model that I learned. And I like that because I've actually found that someone I thought was visual, well, they were completely auditory over here, and it was just context determined. So I would have been not paying attention and just assumed they were visual unless I was listening to where they were at that time in a different situation. Okay? So let's just talk a little more. This time, please listen for his criteria. You can notice chunk size, values, and anything else, but particularly also pictures, sounds, feelings. Pictures are fast, processed more quickly. Auditory's in the middle. Feelings are processed slowly. So let's forget all that, and like there was a curtain and they're not there.
Okay.
So what's your favorite vacation to do? I know this is someone's escape spot, I found out, which is excellent. What's your favorite one to get away and really?
So the best vacation I've ever been on was probably my 2-week trip to Europe about 20 years ago. But the place I've gone the most, although I haven't been there recently, was I used to go to Disney World a lot when my children were smaller.
Yeah. Total getaway, right? Yeah, total other world, literally.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Is there a place in Europe that you like to go?
Our favorite place, besides most of Italy, we loved Old Geneva in Switzerland.
Wow.
We just thought that was the coolest town.
Very cool. Okay, what did you notice?
Pictures.
Some pictures, yeah. What else? Some feeling, like as I asked, what do you love? I asked a feeling question, right? What chunk size?
Chunk size, you talked about Europe mostly.
So Europe, kind of like a country, right? But I named a specific town, but I asked where, so right?
Yeah.
Okay. But notice he can go right to a place, right? Okay. Okay, good. So I would say there's some pictures in there, yes, but his general tone, his pace is about medium to kind of little bit kinesthetic. So it's like auditory. Like remember, I was going a lot faster. He's a little like auditory to kinesthetic in terms of pace, which is why I've slowed down, and I slowed down a little after lunch. You notice? So I was going faster before, and I've slowed down consciously, deliberately, and he's about in the same pace, about like there, right? So who wants to communicate to him using that pace? Any of the other things we've learned, chunk size, value, go ahead and show off. Or just have some fun. Ask a question or...
So what was it about Disneyland with your kids that made it so special?
So it was actually Disney World. And
Is that detail oriented or?
It was actually Disney World. I have been to Disneyland too with my kids, but it's actually Disney World where we went a lot. And from the first time we went, it really was pretty magical. I went as a 26-year-old, and my daughter was 2.5, and that was the first time we were both there. And for her at 2.5, it was like everything was like, they were all real. It's all magical. And for me, it was pretty special too, because it was after it was kind of like in the recession of the early '90s, so the parks weren't crowded. We felt like we almost had the place to ourselves, and we just really enjoyed it.
Pretty cool, right? Yeah. Another one of the things we listen for is self or other. Is he sorting by self or other? And he's pretty balanced. Like I did this, my kids, other people. How about a huge hand for Matt? Thank you, sir, so very much. Thank you for your help, buddy. I'll see you in Vegas. Was that kind of fun? You're kind of learning a lot more. It's you have to be interested in people to really enjoy this, I think. And I think it's one of the best things is to be interested in people and listening to what's going on with them. So yeah, he's fairly detail-oriented. Detail-oriented people will correct you about a detail. If someone's really in a big picture, they won't almost notice that you didn't get. Yeah, the detail. They're like whatever, because they're sorting for the big picture. So that's why I made a point of that out. More detail-oriented people will, oh, you missed a detail. No, it was this place. No, it's chapter 7 that I got, No, see, and they'll correct it. Okay, that's right, it's a detail. So they're attentive to details. Man, accountants will say, line item 17, there's a 4 and not a 3. Holy mackerel, right? Well, it's great, that's appropriate. That's detailed, that's small chunk thinking, right? I've coached some accountants that thought so much in small chunk thinking that they couldn't do the kind of decision-making thing that require you be able to think at a bigger chunk. And do you know that it's virtually impossible to feel progress if you can't small chunk? So some of the most important things we do in life require us to be able to be functional. Do you understand what that? Let me quickly explain that. So I'll be an example. So let's say I want to feel progress. So how many $3 million or more sales did I make this week? None. Oh, I feel terrible. I didn't make any progress. What's wrong with that? My chunk size is a little big, right? If I have to, right? But I teach a thing when I do regular classes. It's called the small chunk progress stack. And in order to feel progress, we have to have a small chunk, a self-to-self comparison with the criteria of progress. But if you can't chunk small, how can you feel progress? So what we do is we practice, here's the language, so something that's improved a little bit since last week in my life is, and we mention a little tiny thing. I got a new sales inquiry. It was really great. We had a good conversation. Great, we make a big feeling about it. And then we stack those. We repeat it in what we call stack and get our brain to do that. Because if you can't notice little tiny chunks of something that's improved and feel good about it, it's a lot harder to feel progress because now you have to achieve something big to achieve progress. Does that make sense? Yeah. So literally the structure of progress is a self-to-self comparison with the criteria of improvement or something that's better. The way I learned that is one of my trainers, his name was Gary Ferris, 25 years ago, sat in a room and he goes, I was in traction after being hit by a truck. He goes, I was in traction. He goes, the other people in this ward kept getting out of the ward. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm going, I can't move my leg. He goes, wait, I'm an NLP guy. I'm going to model him. I'll always remember this. He goes, what are they doing that I'm not? They're getting the outcome. They're getting the heck out of here. I've been here for weeks. He notices the other guy, and the guy goes, oh my gosh, I can wiggle my little toe. Yesterday I couldn't wiggle my toe. It's fantastic. And he goes, he's sorting for a little tiny chunk and feeling really great about it, and I'm looking for a big result, and I feel crummy every day. And that's where I got the idea, and I built this whole stacking process. And he goes, that's why I'm standing in front of you today. And I went, holy mackerel, this is a great pattern. And I've been teaching it for 20 plus years. So there you go. There's my small chunk progress stack story. So chunking is a pretty big deal, isn't it? It's pretty cool. So that's also another self-esteem building thing. Whenever you want to feel more of a sense of progress, compare yourself to yourself as comparison, not self to other. So he's somebody better looking, making more money, or, right? My favorite line from the Magic Castle, this magician used to say, so they've done a study that 1 out of 3, 1 out of 3 people is really unattractive. So look to your right and to your left, and if they both look okay, guess what? And people in the audience would look around and they go, made me think of that joke. I don't really do that, but that's funny stuff to me. That was really good. So you want to, not a self to other comparison, self to self with a small chunk. What's a little better? And it's past to present. What's a little bit better? I little tiny things that aren't big, and feel good. And you train your brain to search for little chunks and feel progress. And that's literally a formula for self-esteem. If you have low self-esteem, you might not be doing that progress. Or you might be comparing yourself to others a lot and these kinds of things. So there you go. That's a modeled pattern. I will always be thankful to that trainer. It got him out of traction. And by noticing that the people making progress, they were feeling more progress because they were sorting for a teenier chunk. And they were making a big deal out of it. Like he wasn't. He wanted a bigger result, which is normal. But isn't that interesting? That's the structure. That's why I do what I do. That's the structure of experience. Okay? All right. Now, I'm going to be the guinea pig on this one, or the demo model. So I want to add just a couple more. So far, you're doing great. This time, how about emotional state? Isn't it good to notice someone's emotional state, match it, and track it? So based on the story I just told, what was my emotional state? Could you label it, or one or two, three things?
Positive.
What is it?
Positive.
Positive, okay. What else?
It gave you great self-esteem,
Gives me self-esteem, yeah. So explaining the small chunk progress stack, what would you say my state is? Excited, okay. What else? Those are good, yeah. So, empowered. Is that what she said?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Empowered. Yeah, it's kind of exhilarating to me, and also fascinating. Like to me, that's just fascinating and that it almost amazes me I'm still doing it, but I thought, wow, thank goodness I identified that. I'm still doing it, because that's a cool pattern, And I feel a sense of progress I didn't used to feel before learning it. So I also feel thankful, tremendously thankful to that trainer, Gary Ferris. He may not even be alive. I've never even seen him after that. One weekend of training changed my life. I mean, So thankful is one. Okay, so
your map too.
What's that?
You got to see your map of progress too.
Right.
Because you like to teach, where you came from, how thankful you are.
So a little bit of that, right? Exactly. So would you communicate to me now using my state, my chunk size, if you can notice it, my values, if there are any values you've noticed. Okay. Just toss out a question or a comment. And the other one we did, so value, chunk size, modality.
How big of a part of the training was that segment?
I used to open up every training, like when I would teach a 6-month-long training, and actually I'm training a police officer right now, 6 months, and man, he needs this pattern. and it's going to change his life. So we do it before every pattern, before we even check in, we do a progress stack. And his girlfriend already said he's had she notices an attitude change. It's rocking his world. So that's how we do it, yeah. I used to actually do it, okay, you guys listening for my map? Because now I'm just blabbing, but I want you to be listening for my map.
Sort by others.
Okay. He used to do it, back in Vegas, when I first taught practitioner trainings, people have to drive across the strip. And in order to get everyone on time, to come on time, because it was a big deal, people would drive, I would start the training, and you had to be there on time to be able to do the progress stack. But then so it was kind of fun. Okay.
The training that you attended, how big of a portion was that?
Oh, no, not at all. Well, his module was like a weekend, but then we did like 6 different trainings in Sunnyvale. About 20, more than.
Was that your big takeaway from that event?
From him, that was a pretty big one, because then I invented the small chunk progress stack. He just mentioned that, but I created that pattern and published it. Yeah, and have used it and taught it, and I needed it myself. But so that was pretty big. So very good. What did she do? What did she ask about? Which part of my map? Which part of my map were you using?
I guess kind of sorting to others, but then also, I guess primarily that.
Okay, very good. I was sorting for others, like how great he was, and kind of a little balance too, like how I'm using it. So you'll notice some people will sort by self. Being sorting by self, they'll reference themselves. It doesn't mean they're selfish. Like Tony Robbins sorts by self more than almost, but he's devoted his whole life to changing other people's lives. It's what fulfills them. So it's really more like where your brain references and what your intention is. So don't think of sorting by self that, well, they're selfish. It just means they sort by self. They reference themselves. And Matt was talking about a little bit of himself, but also his kids and experiences and places and family and stuff. So he's kind of nicely balanced too. Okay? Very good. Let me add one more, and then I'm going to let you kind of rock and roll here. So one of the most powerful ones, and this is one for, remember I told the story about an executive, and he had a son and a daughter, and we were doing an executive coaching session, and his son wanted to go to college, no problem, but he wanted his daughter to go to college too. And he said, I've tried everything. Remember, I told you that story? Right. And he couldn't get her, and I said, well, that's because you're using your map of the world. I said, your son moves towards stuff, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, so do I. I go, yeah, you're using your map of the world. He happens to match your map. So of course you can motivate him to do stuff. But let me ask you, does your daughter move toward things or away? And he goes, oh, away from things. She moves away from things. That's what motivates her. I saved one of the most powerful ones for last. If you try to motivate someone who moves towards things with moving away from things, like consequences, they'll often take it as a threat. So you want to be very careful. You want to use their map of the world, okay? Maybe you've had this experience, okay? And so let me explain how to communicate to this. Maybe I'll do a little better job for you guys. So if someone moves towards, you hear language like this. So I want to do this. Our team has a goal of such and such. They'll be talking about moving towards a goal, right? We want to do this. Sid was very goal-oriented, wasn't he? Especially after I helped him take Y out. He's like, I want to do this. He didn't say, I want to avoid X. That would be moving away from stuff. When you're moving away from, I want to stop this. I don't want to overpay my taxes. That's moving away from that stuff, right? So does that make sense? Yeah. So when you speak and communicate to someone moving towards, you describe moving towards things. So how about we talk about a target or a goal that would help this vision come true and maybe become, more firmed up? And they go, yeah. But I don't say, if they have consequences, I might go, so what's going to happen if you don't do that? And so, what are the consequences of not getting this right? What could you lose? See the consequences? Right? So you talk about consequences. So for this executive, because I think this story really synopsizes it, I said, she moves away from things. I said, also, where's her sense of authority? If she's a teenager, it's probably in self, not you. So I said, do this. So I said, here's the language. I said, you're her dad, so she's going to go, oh, that's dad's advice. So do language like this. Use her map, her sense of authority, and move away from. And so I said, say something like this. I can almost remember it verbatim. I said, say to her something like, well, I've been thinking about this a lot, and you know what? I think this is your decision. I've been, what I want, but I think it's up to you, and I think you're old enough to decide now. Whatever you decide, it's your decision. He said, but I have to tell you, I'm kind of sad that you're going to miss out on all those amazing experiences in college, the parties, the boys. You're going to miss all of this stuff. But it's your decision, and I will stand by you no matter what. 2 weeks later, she goes, Dad, I've got my college. And Alexander, what did you, this is amazing stuff. She was good. Now, is that influence? Yeah. Well, he used her map, not his. Towards or away, consequence. She's not salespeople. If you think that presenting benefits is the way to sell, you don't know masterful selling. Some people that move away from, you can present benefits all day long. They're not motivated by benefits that you move towards. They're motivated by consequences to move away from. You say, but you're going to miss out on this. You could lose this. Your company could go broke. What if, okay, where do I sign for the insurance? Because now, again, if you try to motivate, well, I'm not going to tell you mine. I'm going to make you work to learn mine. So, all right, I'm going to talk a little bit. You guys got this? Okay, and hopefully if I make it a little easier for you to use modality, you'll hear visual words and move faster conversation for pictures. Chunk size, we want to listen for, are they, you kind of look at what the size of is that they're attending to. But if they're talking about a big vision or big goals, like things like that, it's big. If they're mentioning specific circumstances, remember, that's pretty detailed. So I qualify that as detailed. And then anywhere else is in the middle, okay? All right, so let's see. So I'm going to forget about my map, and I'm going to let you guys communicate to me using my map. But I'm going to ask you to, since we're doing great on time, go ahead and communicate to me. Notice my response, and then I'll pause and I'll say, what part of my map were you using? Okay, to test you a little bit, okay? Ready? Okay, so I'll just talk about some goal. So, here's something interesting. So I'm not a golfer, but I love looking at golf courses, right? I mean, this is because they're so beautiful in the middle of, a metropolis, and to see a golf course that it's actually almost inspired me to take up golf, and because and you meet people and can do all kinds of things on the golf course. One of my old friends used to live in Southern California, and he once said, I bank half my business. He was a banker. He said, I inherited a membership to Brentwood Country Club, and I didn't know what that was. He goes, when I walk in, sometimes Burt Lancaster is playing cards with, this was years ago, he goes, this is where the Hollywood hang out. He goes, I bank half the people I do business on the golf course. And that always stayed with me. I'll pause there. Self or other, small chunk, big chunk, values. Are you guys write this stuff down? Are you getting an idea? What's the speed? Can you match it? Just play. There's no wrong answer. Just kind of play with it and see. Okay. Do you want to call some of them out first, and then you can communicate to me? Okay. Let's call some of them out. What are some of my
Visual.
Map of the world? Visual. I was creating pictures. A golf course is kind of a picture.
Right.
Okay. Right.
Self.
I was emphasizing self there.
Yep.
Like I this, I see that. I was doing that on purpose. Very good. Because I can talk about you. Right? Okay. That was good. So self, visual, and let's get one more.
You're going towards?
Towards, right? Towards. Like I'm almost willing to take up golf. Mm-hmm. Instead of, did I say anything about avoiding, I don't want to do, I didn't do any of that, right? Okay, so would you communicate to me with any one of those? You don't have to do all three, just any one of them or more. Visual, self, or, right? Towards.
Do you think you will be taking up golf? Because what I'm hearing is that you are passionate about it in some way, but you haven't started yet.
Perfect, right? Very good. Very good. And you watch and you kept your place. Right? Very good. Let's do one more. Excellent. See how easy? She picked, by the way, here's a good way to do this. Pick one. I taught you all these because I want you to know they're there. But don't try and do them all at once. Pick one and use it. Then you can do another one. Okay? Match my moving away from. Ready? So I'm going to go. So, one of the things I really and want to avoid and get rid of in my life is the hot weather in Texas. So I'm just really, I just want to literally remove that from my life. I'm really tired of it. And, I don't get to enjoy some of the things that I spent years doing, like a Harley, and I love being outdoors. And so I just want to get away from the hot temperatures. I think it's just going to get hotter for reasons you probably already understand, in the next few years. So I'm thinking of moving closer to the coast. So I was moving away from most of that, right?
Yeah.
So please communicate with me, match my moving away from.
So if you were to move away, where would you go?
That's a moving towards statement. Because that's where you would go somewhere, right?
Okay.
So, okay, it's all right, but that's moving towards, okay?
How do you figure, unless you're moving physically, how are you going to avoid the heat?
Right, that's a structural question. How are you going to avoid the heat? But that's mostly moving away. Give me some consequences. All right, I'm motivated by consequences. Let's say you want to motivate me. Give me some consequences. Ask a question. Give me.
If you were to move to the coast, you're probably going to have to buy a really expensive house.
Well, that kind of work. Like, let's say it depends on what you want to motivate me to do. Huh? I don't think I was specific enough for you guys. That was my fault. Yeah, no, that was actually good. But that was a good question. It was a good question. So motivate me to move.
Oh.
Give me consequences. Ready, go.
Well, if you do move, and I heard you say you like cooler weather, if you move out to the coast, the weather will be a little cooler.
That's moving towards.
Oh, that's totally.
So I see, I'm drilling you guys. Got to practice. By the way, salespeople, you should be so good at this because who's going to buy if they? And what if somebody you've talked to? In fact, do you realize of all the salespeople you've talked to, you realize half of them may have been moving away from people, and you're trying to tell them all the great stuff they get, and they're going, you haven't moved me because you're not giving me consequences because you haven't been using their map of the world. You're using your own. If you're motivated by moving towards, it doesn't matter, right? Well, technically it's you, but right? You got to use their map. So give me some consequences about not moving, right?
You don't move, you won't be able to ride your Harley.
Perfect. I'm already depressed. Thank you very much. Right?
You get to keep your Harley, you still have it, or are you going to need to get another one?
I sold one. I love motorcycles. I love Harleys, and I'm thinking of starting a company later, but we'll talk about it. I have some ideas, but I sold one, and I still have a V-Rod. Yeah. And my girlfriend loved the Dyna and being on the back of it, so I have to get another one with a backrest.
I got a Dyna.
I had a Dyna, yeah.
And it gets even, Alexander, if you don't move and it gets even hotter, what other things are you going to miss out in your life?
John's good at this. Did you hear that? What other things are you going to miss out on in your life if you don't do this? So let me give you some examples. So all this time on the Harleys, so you don't get to meet with any Harley buddies or like do any of those runs. You don't get to do any of that? Wow. What a bummer, right? Yeah, right? Now, why would you just make somebody feel terrible? The goal is not to be a sadist. It's, so therefore, if I could give you some ways to move, would you want to do that? Yeah, this motivates people. Remember, the executive I taught, it's too bad you're going to miss out. Miss out is a good one. Miss out on all of those, the party life and all of the stuff, the memories that you get in college. You never get them again. It's too bad you're going to miss out on all that. People are motivated moving away from, they don't want to miss out. Okay? So John just rocked it. How about somebody else? You guys need practice at this because you're not like destroying me, right? Come on.
Second Harley if you don't.
Oh, slam dunk. Yeah, come on, standing up. Okay, you get that? Don't be afraid to really move. Now, you say, if I said, yeah, I'm really bummed, you say, well, if I could show you a way to, like, we could work out this mortgage in a way that, what's going to happen if you don't get this mortgage? It doesn't go through and you don't meet the deadline. You get this? What's going to happen what are some of the other consequences? You have to pinpoint what they're going to lose, miss out, and the pain point, and then bring that out, but with the intention of helping them then motivate towards something that's positive. So you're not doing it just to, that may be part of the reason you guys, we're not taught to do that, to go amplify someone's pain. But in this case, this is one of the most powerful patterns, and it can happen so fast. Okay.
Does your girlfriend miss where you used to live at before you moved to Texas?
Very good. She's from Colorado, so no. So very good. All right. Questions on this? So I hope this has made you. We're about 4:30. So I hope this made you more conscious of other people's maps of the world. Is there anything else you need? So what do you need to be able to start using other people's maps of the world a little more? That's my real goal of this module. You don't have to remember all these, but some of these you may want to really start using. So here are some suggestions, and then I'd love to just kind of get your input on this. Those of you who have children, do you know which children move towards and which children move away from? Because you should. You do now. So you should, because, Johnny, do you want to brush your teeth right after dinner or right before you go to bed? That's the classic, illusion of choice. But you could also say, if you don't brush your teeth, and there are consequences, but you might do that with a different child, that's not going to work. They'll take it as a threat. So if you brush your teeth, your mouth's going to feel all springy and fresh, and plus then, you give some little thing, and, right? And so that's how you would change it up a little bit. So there's something to do with your family. How about your spouse or friends, people you love really close to you? Do you know? And here's a tip. I don't trust my memory to remember it, especially since I learned about Da Vinci, who is considered one of the greatest geniuses. He wrote everything down and didn't trust his memory to remember. So he wrote thousands of notebooks. Bill Gates owns a lot of the original Italian ones, it turns out. I spent 2 years reading the English translation of some of them. It's unbelievable. So if a genius like Da Vinci doesn't trust his memory, he wants to write it down, then I recommend you do. Write it down. Don't expect yourself to. Have a page for every person that's important in your life and have a little bit of their map of the world. And literally, if you have a record of something, does this person move toward or away? What are their top values? This is especially important with your clients and prospective clients. As you gather their map of the world, you make that next phone call, you don't want to go, God, does this person move toward or away? Are they big? You want to have it written down, right? So you can go, oh, right, they move away from. I gotta paint some consequences and then pace and lead to a positive outcome. I got to do small chunks, right? There's your formula right there. Does that make sense? So, it's a really great ticket. Were you waving, Kevin? Yeah.
Are most people predominantly one or the other, or can they switch up depending on the topic? Like finances, they may be towards away.
That's great. It's hard to answer that because I don't have enough data. It's generally assumed in this model. There are two levels of it. One, we all have what are called meta programs. It's on your back page glossary. It means there are some that people are locked into. They rarely change in their lifetime. They sort by self or their big vision, and it's not so easy to change them, and that's why we want to use their meta programs. Other times they're actually context driven. So my real recommendation is always assume that it could change by context. But kind of know what their patterns are, and then read them in the context because it could change. But often people's meta programs never change. And also, some people are balanced, and some, you'll notice, people have proclivities. They'll just lean towards, they'll sort by other, or they'll move away from, or whatever. And then some people are balanced. So it just depends on the person.
Is it product driven too? I always feel okay, if you're selling life insurance, this is a very large, consequential kind of sell.
That is, yeah.
You're selling benefits.
That's a great observation. However, in fact, it's one of the reasons why the top life insurance people will give consequences to a lot of people, but not the people who move toward. They'll give all the benefits of life insurance because that's why someone like me who moves towards would buy. Because if you tell me consequences, I'll take it as a threat. So when I go to motivate myself, what do you think I use? Moving away from or towards? Towards. Now, however, the carrot and the stick, I sometimes use consequences too. If you leave your taxes to the last minute, guess what you're motivated by? Towards, not consequences. Because the consequences had to get really big until you went, oh, okay, I have to do it. Whereas people are motivated away from, they'll pay their taxes really early. They don't want the least, Erica's going, right? They don't want the least little thing to go wrong, right? Okay. So good question. It really depends. I wouldn't generalize, actually. So there's a tip. So have a piece of paper or a 3x5 card on your family, your friends, your kids, and people you care about, and also colleagues that you deal with a lot. I think you should have a little bit of a cheat sheet, like a Cliff's Notes, their map of the world, so you don't have to keep working to remember it. It just makes sense, right? There's a question over here. Someone waved at me. Okay. The other one I recommend is, remember, always just make it a point to use other people's maps of the world over the next couple months. Make it a point. Do I know this person's map? And you can keep a little cheat sheet or these notes or something. And that is worth its weight in gold because You'll be completely different in a conversation. You'll have so much more influence and be able to really understand them if you're using their map. But if it's our state that gets us too focused on our own map. So part of that is just remembering to go into a state where, okay, let me be a little curious. What is Sid's map? Let me see. What's important to him? And I ask questions. What's important to him? Is he moving toward a goal, or is he trying to get away from some stuff? And I ask questions. Is he moving medium, fast, or slow? And chunk size, right? Where is he? What's the chunk that he's at? And I just ask these questions. I'll put them on a thing. Then when I communicate, I can easily go, okay, and I can play with it a little bit. So if you haven't been able to do it right here on the spot, it's easy once you have it down, and then you just use one of them, and you'll be surprised when you match someone's visual. They'll just feel like you understand them. Like, wow, you got the picture, because you weren't talking about sounds, see, and it's really that simple, okay? So I know I kind of put you on the spot here, but it's much easier than you might think. Yes,
Can you give another example of tour in the way again?
Yeah.
Sandra, do you remember the story you told us in Vegas about the person that had to improve his health?
Yeah.
Had what?
Working on his health, and it was like he didn't decide.
He was a heavy set guy,
Yeah.
and he was afraid about his family following in his footsteps, and you took him to the hospital.
Picture your daughter.
Picture your daughter, if that's going to be you on the table.
Oh, yes, this is another coaching client in Vegas.
Yes.
So, okay, I'll tell you this one. So this is a good example of when I screwed it up. So that's my technical term for it. So this is where I screwed up. Okay, so I was doing a coaching session with one of my clients in Vegas. He and his wife had taken almost all my trainings, and so he asked me to coach him. So he goes, look, I need to work out. I'm like 35 pounds overweight. I'm noticing it. I got to exercise. So we do like a whole hour over the phone, and I'm like, okay. And at the end of it, I checked in and I said, so I won't mention his name because I don't have permission to share it. But I said, so let me ask you honestly. We've been working for like 50 minutes. Our hour's almost up. So, you think you're going to be working out more? No, tell me the truth. And he goes, no. I'm like, oh man, like dang. So I went, okay, hold on, give me a second here. So let me just kind of regroup. And I thought back and I went, oh man. So I teach this stuff. So I've been using my map of the world. And I immediately knew what to do. I thought, he moves away from, and he's sorted by other. He had 3 daughters, he and his wife, 3 daughters. And they both worked, had really successful careers. And they had to hire a nanny, stuff. And so his daughters meant the world to him. He would talk about his girls, and he moved away from. So I just said, okay, I just have one question for you in the few minutes we have left. I said, I just want to know one thing. What's it going to feel like when, a couple of years from now, 2-3 years, you look at your daughters and you see how overweight they are, and you know they're going to have health problems and be sick, and you know that they followed your example of bad health, and you are responsible for that. I'm just curious, how you're going to deal with that. And I did it like that, I just wasted an hour, and I'm just going to drill like that. I'm not fooling around, The next call I got was 3 days later, and I hear this on the phone. I'm like, are you okay? You're having a heart attack? He goes, no, I'm on the treadmill at the gym. He goes, what the blank did you say to me? And I said, I just used your map of the world, and I screwed it up for the first most 50 minutes. I just used your map of the world. And that really happened. That's a coaching client. Yeah. And so even when it's okay to mess it up. Even the teacher of it, the job's not to be perfect. Just if you don't get it, I just have to remember, use their map. And it can be that powerful. Now, I really said that. That's from language. I added 2 things. I added 2 meta programs, right? He sorts by other. So I don't want to say, the whole time I was you need to do this for your health. People who sort by other and their other often won't be taking care of themselves because they take care of other people.
That's me.
Sometimes too much. They don't take care of themselves. So the way you motivate, in fact, I just did this with a student. The way I get him to take care of himself, here's what I said. This is using his map and my language. Okay, it's a good example. I said, he wouldn't do it for himself because he sorts by other. Really, to an extreme. Okay. So I said, and he moves towards, I said, if you become a better you using this NLP stuff, you really learned this, that's how you're going to be, that's really the only way you can be an extraordinary resource to these other people you care about, to your girlfriend, to these, he wants to help first responders. He's a cop, he's a cool guy. And I thought, I'm all in. What a noble cause. With all these therapeutic patterns. To help these people, you need to be, to help them, there's no way you're going to be able to help them until you do this. So you're and he's already doing it because now it's all about helping them, but he has to change to help them. You're a lot, if it was a woman, I might even say, what kind of mother, what kind of an example are you for your kids that you don't take good care of yourself? You know they follow, they just mimic the parents. How's it going to feel in the future that you set that example? Now, if a mother cares a lot about her kids, that can just, they go, oh. And talk about power and influence. Because they won't do it for themselves. They're givers, And a lot of women, I know I'm generalizing here, but a lot of women in our culture are trained, conditioned to be caretaker, still, even in our modern world, men too, but, because this is a man who's saying, but, so I do find women fall into that category a lot, but now I know men too. So I can't really generalize women or men. But I'll often say, good mom, good dad, whatever, so you have to set a good example. And that can give a person that leverage because they'll do it for the other. Notice how that's using their map of the world and other? Okay, so anything else? You guys did great with this. My recommendation is be aware of other people's maps. And just those few that I mentioned, keep them on a 3x5 card. Make a template or card for people in your life and start tracking. Practice using their map, not yours. Even if you just do it here and there, it can work wonders, and it's fun, okay? Any questions on this module? And I think, how about we take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back, and I want to cover flexibility, and then we're kind of on the home stretch. Yeah? Any questions on this? Okay. How about we take 5? Thank you.